Hey family, Larry Mullins here, and welcome to this special edition of Black History Month Profiles on 1010 Wins on 92.3 FM and, of course, at 1010wins.com. Oh, we got a special guest here today, but let me start by saying, isn't it fascinating to see so many women, much less women of color, taking over the boardrooms? And yes, I said it, taking over the boardrooms, not only in big business, but in sports as well. I mentioned Cent Marshall, who is the CEO of the Dallas Mavericks, who hired my niece, Brittany Boyd, as the senior vice president. And of course, we've all known about Jenny Buss with the Lakers organization. But little have we heard about hockey. And I'll be honest, we keep it real on this show. I don't know of too many people of color who have been involved in the National Hockey League. Not just as players. We know about the players. We know about Bill Ory, I think 1958, the Boston Bruins. And of course, we know about old PK, his old big old head on TV today, PK Subban, who was with the New Jersey Devils for a while. But in the front office, we don't hear too much about people of color. Well, there's a sister visiting with us today on this special program who shows up here with glass all over her hands, having broken through the glass ceiling. And it gives me honor to introduce to you the incomparable, I say, Ms. Kim Davis, the Senior Executive Vice President of the National Hockey League. How are you?
Oh my goodness, what a introduction.
I
Thank
tell
you
what,
so much.
And you deserve such an introduction, and you're welcome so much. You've done it. Or as they say, girl, you done the damn thing. How did this happen? And I'll be honest, because we don't hear about a whole lot of people of color in hockey. I know we've been in hockey. I know we played hockey. There is at least, more than a dozen players who've been out there.
59.
59.
That's right.
But in the front office, and here you are. How did this happen?
Well, I should start by doing a little myth busting and say that I am not the first person of color, the first black woman, yes, but I'm not the first person of color to be in the front office. In 1991, Bryant McBride was the first black person to be in a VP role in the front office of the National Hockey League. And so I want to acknowledge that. But I am the first black person to be in the C-suite of the National Hockey League, and that happened 6 years ago because I met the commissioner, Gary Bettman, as a consultant to the National Hockey League. And I made some recommendations to Gary that, since we're keeping it real, he didn't necessarily love. But he thought about those recommendations over the summer and called me back and said, you put something on my mind. Why don't you come and help us take hockey into the next 100 years?
Okay, you're not going to get off that light. I'm going to ask you, what did you recommend to this man?
Well, the assignment that I was working on was to help them think about how to make their marketing assets more effective. And I said to him, you've got a bigger problem than that. You've got a structural problem, and you've got a culture problem. And many on his management team have recommended that I not use the word culture because he didn't like the word culture.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, I don't know how you can talk about the future and not talk about culture. And ultimately, Gary said, you are absolutely right. And he has been my biggest supporter, my biggest sponsor, and my biggest fan.
Good brother. Glad to hear that. Oh, my goodness. And how's it been? It's been 6 years, did you say?
Almost 7 years.
Yeah.
And it has been amazing. I have had nothing but support from the 32 owners. I have developed some amazing friendships, and we are changing the sport of hockey for the good.
Ms. Davis, were you interested in hockey before this, or was it more of a business thing? I mean, I don't see you telling me a story about, well, I used to chop it up with the great Wayne Gretzky on the ice and whatever. I don't know.
You're telling my age, chopping it up with Wayne Gretzky. You're right. No, I did not play hockey, but I grew up in Chicago, and I grew up ice skating. And so, it's not like hockey was foreign, but hockey was not culturally available in my neighborhood. We ice skated, but we did not play hockey. My son played hockey when he was in middle school and did not have a good experience. And so fast forward years later, when the opportunity came for me to help shape the future culture of the sport, I saw it as an opportunity to do some real work.
So the son really got you to thinking about doing more with ice hockey. What did he experience? Are you saying something?
Yeah, he was called the N-word.
Really?
Yeah, on the ice. And
On the ice?
On the ice. On the ice. By a parent.
Okay.
And he decided that if people in the sport were that ignorant, he didn't want to play. And he was an amazing athlete, went on to be a track and field star in college. And I often tell that story because I say to folks, you missed the opportunity for a world-class hockey player. And that's what we don't realize when we don't expose everyone that wants to play any sport to all the opportunities.
So they picked the wrong young brother because here comes mama, and you don't mess with mama's baby.
Here comes
so
mama.
So you show up in the C-suite now.
There you go.
I wonder what those parents would be thinking right now, the ones that call that boy the N-word, to look up and go, that's my mama right there. She's running the joint. Or one of those who runs the joint. That's good stuff.
Well.
That's good stuff. You have been lauded and applauded all over. I have a list of things. I can't even read them all. Adweek's 30 Most Powerful Women in Sports, Top 100 Influential Leaders in the Sport, Influential Women in Corporate America. I know you didn't pay those people to give you those superlatives, so you must be really good at what you do. If someone were to ask you, okay, Ms. Kim, what do you do for ice hockey? What do you do for that league that sets you apart from everybody?
I would say that I help the sport usher in a new era of fandom. And what I mean by that is I touch everything that has to do with growing the sport with what I call fans in waiting, those sports and entertainment folks that haven't ever thought about hockey, people that love sport and need to know that hockey is available to them. And across all the intersections, whether we talk about race, gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, to make the sport culturally available to those that want to consume it, starting with kids on the ice all the way through programs that make our stadiums more available and safer for folks that look like you and I. And everything in between. So it's a real change effort. I would say that really has been the hallmark of my 40 years in corporate America, is that I'm a change agent.
Which is really amazing because you and I think, are the same age at 28.
Yes.
And you were telling me earlier that it starts with the baby. You got a 4-year-old grandson who's into hockey and loving it.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, loves it.
Yeah.
And every time I see him on the ice, I think about the fact that 10 years ago, I'm not sure that he would feel as free as he does to explore a sport like ice hockey.
Is it a hard sell when you talk about selling it to the cultures and getting people, interested in hockey, either as players, as fans? Your thing is fandom. Is it a hard sell?
It's not a hard sell. It is. It requires breaking myths. It's myth busting. Starting with cost. Most people think, oh my goodness, hockey is expensive, it's not accessible, there's no ice in my community, and if I go, I'm going to be the only one. So one of the things we did 6 years ago when I started was we put a mobile museum on the road that talked about the history of black folks in the sport of hockey, starting with the Colored Hockey League in 1895. Freed slaves made their way up to Nova Scotia and started the Colored Hockey League before the National Hockey League existed.
You just educated me on something. Did not know.
Unbelievable. And they were the builders of some of the innovations of hockey today. That story had never been told. The Fosse brothers, two white guys, wrote a book called Black Ice which talks about the history of the Colored Hockey League. And I encourage everyone to get that book, because when we know our history, we know our
Yeah.
future.
Wow. And we thought it was only the Negro baseball
That's
league.
right.
And here we are.
Here
Even
we-
before baseball.
Even before baseball, even before the National Hockey League, there was the Colored Hockey League.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. And so now you are writing on that.
Yes.
And you are, as they used to say, boy, I am my great, great, great grandparents' wildest dream to be in the position that you're in right now.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see your biggest impact, and how do you see your biggest impact on getting more people of color in the boardrooms, or getting more people, and I know your specialty, getting more fans in seats, or getting more players out on the ice? Or
It's
all
got
of
to
the
be
above?
all of it. And I would say that my greatest impact thus far has been shifting the mindset of the owners from a mindset of thinking that people of color are charitable versus thinking about people of color through the lens of growth.
Okay.
And so one of the first things I said to them was that you have to shift your mindset from a charitable mindset to a growth mindset. And as simple as those words are, it was a major shift. And many of the owners said, I never thought about it that way. So that, to me, requires us to think across every dimension, starting with who's playing our sport, who's in the front office. We know representation counts. If you see it, you believe you can be it, right? So there's so many people that have come to the NHL over the past 5 years because they see me there. I have increased the diversity of my own management team by 90%.
Did you ever see yourself in this role?
No, of course not.
Did you weren't on the street corners of Chicago going, one day, Kim Davis, you're going to be the senior executive vice president of the National Hockey League.
All I knew was as a kid, following my grandfather around, who was a change agent himself, was that I was going to do something impactful and purpose-driven, but I could not tell you what it was.
So when you got that call from Batman saying, you know what, I think I want you to join the staff, what were you thinking?
I was
Go
thinking,
ahead, you can go ahead and embarrass yourself. Did you jump up yippee-yi-yo or what?
No, I was like, I said to my husband, I'm like, hockey? Are you kidding? I'm like, I don't know about that. And he goes, so it's what you do. He goes, and if you don't like it, you'll do what you've done before and you'll leave.
Yeah.
And, that was like so freeing, because you're right.
Yeah.
And so there you have it.
I'm so fascinated with the stories that come, and I've not interviewed Cent Marshall with the Mavericks, but I've read her story, and I know that Mark Cuban, who was the owner at the
Yes.
time, called her, and the husband picked up the phone and said, some guy named Mark want to talk to you, and she thought it was a hoax. So the husband's brothers, get with it, for heaven's sake, damn, and she thought he thought it was a joke, and she goes, who? She said, I don't know about no basketball.
Right.
She says, but I know business.
I know business.
I know my stuff.
Right.
And it's refreshing. It's refreshing to see that.
Yeah.
Where do you see you in 10 years?
Oh gosh. Well, on
CEO?
the beach somewhere. No.
Oh, on the
No.
beach somewhere.
This is I often say that my work now is about preparing the next generation. I do not aspire to any greater height than to be a role model for and a mentor and sponsor of the next generation, so that they are in a place to take this work to another level.
Ms. Davis, I mentioned PK Subban, who spent some time around here with the Devils. I think he's been with Montreal, a couple of other teams, and so many others.
Yeah.
What reaction have you gotten, not necessarily directly from him, but from people, men, women, whatever, of color in the league, to see you in the position you're in?
It's
and how
been
fulfilling is
it's
that?
been so positive, and PK is a friend.
Okay.
And he is a co-chair of a coalition that I help bring to birth, I guess, the Player Inclusion Coalition, and that is made up of both male and female professional, retired and active hockey players who are about changing the game for good. Anson Carter, who also is a black player, retired now, sportscaster on TNT, PK, obviously, Kevin Weeks, who also played. These are all young men who I think are just excited about seeing the sport that they love, that they have always loved, really become more visible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're building a legacy. Speaking of which, aren't you the president of the NHL Foundation as well?
I am.
Okay. And that must be, that's another whole monster dealing with all of that. What's that like, and what's the goal of that?
Well, the goal of the foundation, and we have two foundations. We have one in Canada and one in the U.S. And we just gone through a re-engineering of the foundation so that they are more purpose-driven, more focused, and impactful in helping to use hockey to build stronger, more vibrant communities. That really is our goal. And we have so many people that love the sport of hockey that are willing to put their time and their talents and their treasures into the foundation so that we can give money to help support kids that want to play the sport. We can help people with mental illness and wellness. We can use that money to bring more representation into the front office of the sport. That's what the foundation is doing.
Okay. Now I got to put you on the spot, and I always do this with people who come in here representing these the national office of these sports, arenas, if you will. Who's your favorite team?
Oh gosh, you know I can't answer that. I love every team.
you were in Chicago, grew up in Chicago.
Well, you know I have to love the Blackhawks.
Okay.
I mean, that's home. And yes, I was just in Chicago last weekend, and okay, if I have to say one, it would have to be the Blackhawks.
Got it.
He made me.
Do you go to many of the games?
Yes.
Do you do get to go to the games?
Oh, I go to many games.
Yeah.
And every time I visit a market, which is very often, I go to the game.
So let me ask you something. I've been to a few hockey games. It seems like the greatest thrill, particularly for the kids, is to be right there on the edge in the front row to see the glass or the plexiglass window, bang, 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 and they're banging on the window or whatever. Is that the thrill that was expected, or that just happened organically?
I mean, I think people that are diehard hockey fans love that experience. I like sitting up high and watching from that perch. But there is nothing like seeing a hockey game live. Like people that have a preconceived notion about hockey have usually only experienced it on TV. That is not the hockey experience. You have to be in the stadium watching these amazing athletes who are skating and
chasing a little
puck. Exactly. It's pretty amazing. And it is the ultimate team sport because every player is important because they only stay on the ice 3 or 4 minutes before they rotate. So it is the ultimate team sport. And that has been both a positive and a negative for the sport because the guys are behind the mask. You don't really see them, so you don't get to see the personas of hockey players the way you do basketball and other sports. But that's changing. Humans over highlights.
All right, now wrap this thing up for me here.
Yes.
For anybody who might be thinking about getting into the sport, who might be thinking about getting into the front office or starting out low and working their way up into the office or supporting hockey, what do you say?
I am the perfect example of the notion that skills are transferable. And so if you have any interest in marketing, finance, law, technology, fan development, hockey is there for all of that. It is an amazing place to work. The culture is shifting and changing. 35% of the population of the NHL are women. 25% are people of color. Hockey is a place for you.
All right. Kim, have you ever actually physically gotten down on the ice with a hockey puck?
I have.
And had like an impromptu challenge or whatever?
Well, not a challenge. I mean, let's not go that far.
So you're not crazy.
But I'm not crazy, but I can ice skate.
Okay.
So that's, that they always say with hockey, the first thing is being able to stand up on some skates. You got to know how to skate first before you start handling a puck.
Well, not only do you know how to skate, but you know how to skate with the best of them and from the best perch in the house. as the Senior Executive Vice President. What an honor to meet you, Kim Davis.
Well, thank you, Larry.
Thank you so much.
I'm appreciative.
I appreciate you. And that'll wrap it for this edition of Black History Month Profiles on 1010 Wins on 92.3 and at 1010wins.com. Thank you so much. Isn't she great? Oh, I want to go out and play hockey, but not really. I'll kill myself. I'll check you on the radio. Thanks for joining us.